Hey everybody, welcome back, and if you're new here, my name is Qcknd, and this year I've had a couple surgeries. In the last few years, I've had a couple revisions to my physical appearance with focus on getting some tattoo removal and having some piercings closed, revised, sewn up. Today I'm going to be talking about how I had scar revision surgery done on my stretched philtrum, sometimes also known as the Medusa piercing. Before we get into the surgery, this is a story of regret, of expenses, and of course, this is also a story about self-discovery. I have had a ton of issues or mental blocks about, taking out piercings, tattoos, stuff like that. I was someone who was like, I'm gonna wear my stretched ears until I'm a grandma. And then I had my earlobes sewn up like 3 years after I said that out loud. Stick with me through this video and I will also work through my feelings out loud about the process of just shifting and growing away from things that you were once very secure about and very proud about, and how that can be a little frightening to wake up one day and be like, In this video, I also hope to be completely candid as possible about price, expectation, healing, my feelings on how it is healed. And I should let you know I am wearing makeup and I have my lips overlined today, so you might watch this and be like, wow, looks really good, but let's get into it. So some background, I would say maybe 7 to 10 years ago, I had my philtrum pierced. So I did not have a standard piercing size when I had my philtrum pierced. I had my piercing at a large gauge. So I believe my philtrum was pierced at a 6 gauge. So from what I understand, either needles go up to a 6, or if you want to be pierced at a larger gauge than that, then you would have a piercing done with a scalpel. It's been a long time since it happened, so I can't tell you if I was pierced with a 6 gauge needle or if I was pierced with a scalpel, but knowing me back then, I had stretched nostrils, I had stretched septum. I'm pretty sure I had my philtrum pierced initially at a 6 gauge with a scalpel. After I had my philtrum pierced at a 6 gauge, I stretched it to a 0. This is an example of the jewelry that I would have wore when my philtrum was a 0. And if I think about it, this is actually a 2 gauge. This isn't a 0. So I think from being initially pierced with a scalpel to right around the time I retired this piercing, I think it was about 3 years of stretching until I got to my goal at a 0. And I have to tell you, I was really happy with it. I loved the way it gave me like a little pout. And of course, having a stretched philtrum was always my goal, so meeting your goal feels good. So it is my ancient history, but around that time I was working at like a cool skate shop kind of vibe streetwear store, and the store eventually went out of business, but I was let go. Living on my own out there in the world, I took a job really quickly, and it was at a coffee shop, and they required no piercings at all. So I took out all of my piercings because that was the best action for me. Of course, some resistance from me, like, hey, also, why wouldn't the barista have piercings and look really cool? This doesn't add up. I took out my piercings because rent was due. I worked there for a couple of years, and at that point I got really used to not wearing jewelry, and to this day I have had my philtrum out longer than I ever had it in. The philtrum jewelry, not the part of my body. With that, it was kind of my goal to have the scar revision surgery anyway, but I didn't know what that would look like, and I was really kind of lazy about the whole process because I was intimidated by it. And throughout this whole thing, I always feel like, I'm doing my previous self this kind of disfavor, who set me up to like look cool and have all these piercings and stretch my piercings, and now I'm like, why'd you do all that? So there is a call to my previous self where I have a hard time letting go, even though I have 100% let go. I didn't wear the jewelry, like I said, longer than I ever wore it at this point, but I have a hard time letting go. And with that, I also wore the scar kind of like as a little nod to like, yeah, I'm cool. See? 5 years ago, I had my earlobes sewn up, which were also scalpeled and stretched. And I had those professionally done by Sampa von Cyborg, who is a body modification specialist. When I had my earlobes sewn up, I had Sampa look at my Philtrum piercing, and he was like, yeah, we do that. We can totally do that. So in my mind, I've kind of always been waiting for Sampa to come back because he tours. He does like a global tour and does his body modification. And I was waiting for him to come back to the United States. However, I think a part of me was also making the process difficult on purpose to like unconsciously sabotage or make it harder for this to happen, because whenever I was like, I'm self-conscious about this hole in my face, I was always like, well, I know down the road I'm going to have it fixed. But I'm having it fixed by somebody who once a year comes to my country to do body modification. You know what I mean? I think I was making it hard for myself on purpose. But I have to say, I was self-conscious about my Philtrum piercing. Initially, it had nothing to do with my feelings about kind of growing away from body modifications, which I have to say was really natural. Getting the job at the coffee shop was the catalyst, but then I really quickly kind of developed my own personal style outside of that, so that was kind of the jump off. It was very natural. One thing I found myself having a difficult time with was other people obviously making comments about how I looked. And yes, I'm on social media, I am on YouTube, but they all started at the coffee shop. Customers would be like, what is the hole in your lip? Is that a medical thing? Is that a piercing? Can you squirt water through it? Is that gross? Does it smell? Like all of this stuff that like, if you work in customer service and you hear the same questions like 100 times a day, no matter what they are, they just kind of beat you down. So I think I was put in a hyper situation that made my disdain grow at 10 times speed. But that was 5 years ago. Let's move on to today. This year, I underwent the process of discovering that I have a severely deviated septum, and then going through the process of finding a surgeon and having the surgery. It's all done. See? She looks really different. And she smells like a bloodhound. Now, if you've been following me along on this process, and if you're new, I'll make a playlist right here. You can check that out because there is some parts of my deviated septum surgery where I talk about my Philtrum. During my first consultation with my surgeon, I was actually recommended to a specialist who could deal with the severity of my deviated septum. My second surgeon, the specialist, was somebody who did specialize in reconstruction, severe plastic surgery. And during one of our consultations, he said, what are you doing with this? My Philtrum scar. And I was like, oh, I don't know. The person who did my ears is going to do this. So I said a body modification specialist was going to give me a scar revision, one day. My surgeon said, let's do it. Let me do it. Let me do your scar revision. Although I was hesitant and also felt like I was being upsold by my surgeon, he told me, listen, your scar revision is not going to be as easy as, a different scar revision somewhere else. He told me that in the area of my Philtrum, there is a lot going on. And because my Philtrum was stretched, a lot of tissue is gone. So tissue would have to be replaced. It was not as easy as just sewing it up. With that in mind, I said, okay, this is a professional offering to do it while I'm already going to be asleep during my nose surgery. So he said, it's really complicated. more complicated than you think. Tissue has been lost. Tissue has to be replaced. And he's not wrong. It was stretched to a 0. My surgeon was already fixing my stretched septum in the process of correcting my deviated septum. Surgery, something, nose was broken. So I thought, what the fuck? Let's do it. It's here, it's in front of me. All I have to do is say yes. And if you want more information on my stretched septum surgery gone, that was also stretched to a 0, let me know. I am someone who had a ton of piercings and was a BME zine angel, and now I am just one step closer to being absolutely forgettable. Yes. The YouTuber who rejected all of her piercings. They didn't reject though. She took good care of them. While I was there, you know, like in my deviated septum video, where I was completely honest about that process, there was some roadblocks, and you know, getting the surgery had its own complications, appointment cancellation, stuff like that, that weren't my fault. So my surgeon said, hey, you know, you've been really patient, you've been really cool. I will correct your stretched philtrum and your conch piercings, the conch hole in my ear, see it? He said, I will fix both of those for $1,500. So that was like a deal. You can't ask me any hard questions. You just can't. You can't ask me where we're gonna go eat. You can't ask me, can I fix your philtrum and your conch for $1,500? So I told him, well, Sampo was gonna fix those. We can do my philtrum surgery. I want it done. And it sounds more complicated than just putting a stitch there like I always thought. I did say no to the conch reconstruction. I have mixed feelings about the decision I made, but he told me that I don't have to be put to sleep if we want to do it in the future. So I said, let's go. So fixing my philtrum was $1,000. I didn't have to pay anything else because I was already being put to sleep for my deviated septum. If this price seems really expensive to you or seems fair, I don't know. I had a stretched philtrum, complicated on its own. Tissue was lost, that's what he told me. And I was having it fixed by somebody who specializes in reconstruction as a specialist. So I thought, hey, down the line, I might not even be able to have access to this man because I was only recommended here because of the severity of my case. Now, I have had a friend who had the same exact reconstruction done by a different body modification specialist, and it was for a fraction of what I paid. So there are a variety of prices out there. I'm just being completely honest with you. Mine was $1,000. I told you guys that I had to put $1,000 down as a payment to guarantee my surgery date or something. So it kind of also felt like I know it wasn't free, but then I was like, well, I don't know. I paid that so long ago.
Hi there, body piercing expert Vilonious here to provide some extra context. As a former body piercer, I know a thing or two when it comes to face anatomy. This part of your face right here, your philtrum, it doesn't seem like it, but there's a lot going on in there. It's a very nerve dense part of your face. If we look here, or maybe here, yeah, let's look here at a diagram of the nerves in your face, you'll see you got a big old honking one going right through the middle there. Also, I mean, you don't have to be a doctor to be able to figure this out. There's a lot of muscle in here too, a lot. Look at this, look at that. Can you do that? You might not be able to see because I have a mustache, but just do this. Can you do that with any other part of your skin? I didn't think so. So think about it like this, your earlobes, they're useless little, there's nothing going on in here, nothing at all. But your upper lip, that's a whole different story. So for something like sewing your earlobes back together, yeah, maybe a body mod artist can handle that. But here, philtrum, reconstructing that, I'm not saying that there isn't a body mod artist out there who could reconstruct it and reconstruct it well, but I think maybe, just maybe, in this situation, a cosmetic surgeon is the best choice if that option is available to you. That's all I'm saying. That's it. Okay, back to Qcknd.
So on the day of surgery, I was prepped and everything. You can check out the full details of that, including, being put under anesthesia and what to expect in my deviated septum video. But I was put to sleep for my deviated septum surgery. When I came out of surgery, when I woke up, everything felt really fine, until the medicine wore off. And I have to say, if I was even in a little more pain, like if I would have accepted the conches, I don't know. I don't think I could have done it. Now, this is where my experience might be different from yours because I was also healing, a septoplasty. But eating was really difficult because, the surgery. So this is what to expect from your surgery. It might vary because my stretch philtrum was much larger and, pierced perhaps differently than yours. But essentially in the surgery, they cut out the tube. So if you can imagine a piercing, imagine a jewelry, imagine like a standard barbell that would go in your piercing. Imagine that the two balls on each side. Imagine the piece of jewelry through the middle. It goes through like a tube, right? So to correct the piercing, the surgeon removes the tube. So he cut out the tube. And from looking at the scars and looking at all the pictures, it looks like it was done in an X pattern. After surgery, I had stitches, and the stitches were not dissolvable. They had to be removed. I get the stitches out of my Philtrum, and it is worse for wear. I just got out of the shower. You can see it's like really crusted over. Honestly, it has not been crusty before, but as I heal and I get more dexterity in my face, I am emoting more, I am smiling, I am laughing, and I'm eating. I've been cutting my food up in really, really, really small pieces, just to only but as I feel better, I just unconsciously will take a big bite or laugh or talk a lot, which I really, really, really shouldn't be doing. On the underside, you really can't tell. But I assume that's where the stitches are because the stitches in my lip, I don't even think are doing anything. It looks like all the ends of stitches. I experienced a ton of swelling that was very obvious and very uncomfortable, but not completely unbearable, and could easily be concealed with wearing a mask to the supermarket, etc., etc. So not a super big deal if you're in social media like me. Difficult to completely conceal. Even after about a month out, I was still really, really self-conscious about the results. And I'll go into that. It took about 2 to 3 weeks to have all of the stitches removed after surgery. They became really, really uncomfortable, and one of the stitches was actually left in and I had to remove it. I knew it was still there because of how uncomfortable it felt, and then the littlest tiniest fleck of purple, the size of a glitter, I was like, oh no. I would say it kind of swelled my lip into a shape I could not recognize. And this is also where I'll start talking about regret and changes, and if I would have gotten the surgery if I knew what I knew now. After I had these stitches removed, as a part of the process of healing, my doctor recommended me to an esthetician that is in his office as a part of his practice. I didn't really know about all of this when I was sitting in the chair and I said, yes, let's do my Philtrum. I did not know that there was a full recovery plan. And the recovery plan was adding up really fast. No shade to the esthetician, I like her a lot. After he took those stitches out, boink, He said, I want you to get a dermophile. So a dermophile a dermophile experience? Appointment? What would you call like a facial? My stitches stayed in for like 3 weeks. And I did go back before and he said, let's keep them in 1 more week. And then at the 3rd week, the stitches were removed and I had my first dermophile appointment. The dermophile experience, to explain it in just simple terms, was basically a giant file, like nail file, metal, and it was used to just scrape my face. Just scrape it. Scrape the face. After the stitches were taken out, I had obvious scarring, and I also had lost a lot of dexterity in my face, a lot of movement. I couldn't laugh without feeling really a lot of tightness, and I was begging people to stop making me laugh, and that makes people want to do it so much more, but I have to tell you, hang out with your unfunny friends because it hurts so badly. I was feeling a lot of tightness, and I also couldn't move my lip. So when I was laughing, it looked like this. Ha 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 ha, and that is offensive to some people. I filmed a video about a month out where I do some anime-inspired clothing upcycles, and you could really see my face. It's really giving you frog. I can't move a lot of it, and that's about a month out. So my dermophile appointment, scrape, 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 hurt a lot. And it made my face and my lip bright red. At that appointment, I was also sold medical cosmetic silicone to help with the scarring. I just don't know why I didn't consider that there would be so much scarring, because I thought, hey, we're getting rid of a scar, so there will be no scar. I don't know, no scars for me. Yay, can't wait for that future. The new scar is different. But ideally, we wouldn't be replacing a scar with another scar. Is that how it works? I guess, but I don't know. The scar gel, the silicone, was $60, and every dermophile appointment I have, I think, is $150. They're not covered under insurance, and they're not a part of the initial $1,000 I spent. At this point, a month out, I was feeling really self-conscious because it had changed the shape of my lip. My lip looked a lot different. My facial expressions looked a lot different. Remember? Ha 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 ha. Emoting, making expressions was a lot different, and it was something I had to almost like relearn, redo. My second appointment with the esthetician was dermophiling again, and then some physical therapy. So inside, the esthetician put a glove on and put her hands in my mouth, and she said that a lot of scar tissue was actually developing underneath the scar on top of my face, underneath. So she was in the mouth. And she pushed on the scar tissue, which was like a little bead in my mouth, and she pressed on it, and immediately I felt all pain through my body. Like, you know, you want to be cool and have a high pain threshold and be nice to the lady, but I was like, oh. She told me that this big wad of scar tissue was what was keeping me from having full dexterity in my face. And why, whenever I was smiling, I kind of lost all vision of my gums. I could only give you bottom row teeth. Someone actually commented on my septoplasty video and asked me, did they do something with your teeth? You look different. And I said, my lip covers my top row of teeth and it never used to. So I can only give you bottom now. No top. So now I was also visiting my esthetician for this physical therapy where she was massaging out the scar tissue, which was giving me more use of my lip every single day. She told me, you can do this too, but up until then I was just massaging the top layer of my skin, not putting the thumb in the mouth and doing that as well, because in my mind it was a scar on top. But you have to remember, they cut that tube out. the tube. Because of the scar tissue, it's actually surprisingly painful, but like right now talking, it doesn't ache. I'm completely unaware of it. But when I put my hands in my mouth and squeeze the ball of scar tissue, it's kind of like instant pain all over your body. You want to like jump backwards when someone's doing it to you. So my surgery was at the end of April, and now we're approaching the beginning of August. And I have to say, my lip does still have some numbness. There is still some issues with how my lip looks now. And I have to say, my lip looks different, even though I didn't expect that at all. Because my Philtrum piercing was above my lip, below my nose, I didn't anticipate that my lip shape would change. Now my lip shape kind of has a dip, and it never really had one. I'm assuming that's where like tissue was replaced in my mouth, because remember, tissue was lost and it had to be replaced. I signed paperwork that I would accept cadaver, like donation, like skin from a cadaver. I did get all of my surgeon's like surgical notes during surgery, but there weren't any related to my mouth and the surgical notes. So I don't know yet, but tissue was added. I now later like the new shape of my lip. I've been doing this makeup that is this nice rounded overlined lip, and I think my new lip shape has inspired me to do that. I think my new lips are cute and I've accepted them, but I wasn't in the market to change them. It did take me, you know, a couple months of working through the scar tissue, doing little mouth exercises to get full dexterity of my mouth back. And there are some things that are new. When I smile big, I now have a line under my nose that I never used to have. I also have to smile really, really big to see any gum, whereas before my smile had gums. Finally, the scar that is left behind now, I don't like the scar. There is a new scar now instead of the old scar. I'm hoping in the next year the scar will change and transform into something else that is lighter and less visible and has less texture. But as of right now, I don't love the scar. And just on me, if you have a scar on your face, I love it. But to warn you, if you have this surgery, you will leave it looking different. Yeah, you want that, right? But keep in mind, you were very used to how you looked before. So anything that changes is going to be different. And people will have to react to it differently. And you will have to react to it differently. And your makeup will have to change a little bit. And that can be upsetting if you're not used to it already. So I have gotten some comments that I look different, and hopefully you understand. If you see them in my comment section, that is something you might see or experience as well. If you have scar revision surgery, you will look different afterwards. My little Philtrum piercing hole was iconic. It was part of my identity. It was something I even used in my branding, and it was something, you know, that I had no problem with. But as people pointed it out, as, you know, that kind of amplified, it was just something I became self-conscious of. And having the revision surgery was something I wanted for years anyway. You know, I just, you know, temporarily lost my ability to emote with my face. Kind of important, especially as, you know, there's all these Twitch streams of me where I can't even move my face, and they're awful. They're deleted. There's no VODs of those. So I would say the initial recovery is 2 to 6 weeks, but then if you have, you know, if your piercing is larger than average, there will be things that change about how you look. I wanted the procedure. I didn't want an open hole in my lip anymore. And you guys might be used to it if you're from my channel and you're a part of my ethos, and I love you for it. But meeting strangers and people seeing me for the very first time, it's the first thing they saw no matter what. However, the recovery from the surgery wasn't as easy as I thought. Some things were left out. It was expensive, and the post-treatments are expensive as well, and everyone I go to minimizes the scar a little more, right? But they're not covered by insurance. Now, today, I'm happy with how I look. Back to just feeling good about how I looked. Like I felt before surgery, now after surgery, I'm just back to feeling fine. So it was a journey, boy oh boy, but I make this video now in this timeline because I just had a visit with my esthetician last week, and she says that I don't have to come back for 3 months as long as I keep up with my little physical therapy, my little silicone, and, you know, she also recommended some skincare for me. So let me know if there's any questions I didn't answer for you guys. I would love to make a follow-up Q&A, so please put your questions down below. If you think I have sold out, I love that for you. I agree. And if you are considering this surgery, it has to be something you do for yourself. Being on social media is very unnatural. It's not right. So think about it yourself if you want to do it. Doing something hard is fun. Alright? Anyway, I love you. Please subscribe to this channel. It really helps me out a lot. And check me out on Twitch at twitch.tv/Qcknd and my variety of other offshoot channels. They will be linked down below. I love you so much. Bye.